Snow began falling 3 hours before Ethan Cole reached Winter Hollow. At first, it was light, gentle flakes drifting lazily across the windshield, melting the moment they touched the glass. But as the road climbed higher into the mountains, the snowfall thickened, turning heavy and deliberate. Like the sky was trying to erase the world below, the trees closed in on both sides of the road. Tall pines, black trunks, branches bending low, heavy with snow. Ethan slowed the car. The road sign appeared suddenly through the fog. Welcome to Winter Hollow, population 1042. Someone had carved a second message beneath it, not painted, not written, not carved. Double quotes, KEEP singing. Ethan frowned. He didn't remember that being there. Ethan hadn't planned to come back. He left Winter Hollow the moment he turned 18, promising himself he would never return, not for Christmas, not for funerals, not for ghosts that lived only in memory. But death had a way of reopening doors you thought were sealed forever. His grandmother, Margaret Cole, was gone. She had raised him after his parents died, filling the old house with warmth, music, and stories she never finished telling. When Ethan received the letter from the town lawyer, he ignored it for weeks. Until Christmas Eve. That was when the guilt finally won. Now, as his car crept down the main road, a strange feeling settled in his chest, like the town recognized him, like it had been waiting. Winter Hollow was decorated for Christmas. Every house glowed with lights, red, gold, blue, perfectly arranged, perfectly symmetrical. Wreaths hung on doors, candles burned in windows, but the streets were empty. No cars, no footsteps, no voices. Not even the sound of distant laughter. Ethan checked his phone. No signal. As he passed the town square, he slowed instinctively. A massive Christmas tree stood at the center, taller than he remembered. Its lights pulsed softly, not blinking, but breathing. Beneath its sat-wrapped presence. Dozens of them. No names. Just one word written again and again on every tag: for you. A sudden wave of unease washed over him. Get a grip, he muttered, pressing the gas. The car radio crackled. Static. Then dashed faintly. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. The volume knob twisted on its own. The song grew clearer. Closer. He slammed the radio off. The silence that followed felt worse. His grandmother's house sat at the edge of town, exactly where the forest began. It looked smaller than he remembered. Older. Tired. Snow covered the porch steps. Untouched, no footprints, no signs of life. When Ethan unlocked the door, it opened easily. As if it hadn't been locked at all. Inside, the air was cold. Not winter cold. Grave. Cold. The smell of pine and dust lingered, mixed with something faintly metallic. The furniture remained covered in white sheets, like silent figures waiting to be uncovered. The moment he stepped inside, the grandfather clock started ticking. It hadn't worked in years. Ethan froze. Hello? He called out. No answer, but he felt it, a presence, not watching, listening. Ethan moved through the house slowly, memories rising uninvited. The living room, where his grandmother used to sit by the fire, knitting scarves she never finished. The dining table, where she insisted on Christmas dinner even when it was just the two of them. The piano in the corner, its keys yellowed with age. His grandmother loved music, especially Christmas carols. She used to say, "Some songs protect us, Ethan, as long as they're sung." He never understood what she meant, until now. On the piano rested a single envelope. No stamp, no handwriting, just his name. Inside was a small card, 3 words written in shaky ink: "Do not stop." Before he could react, the piano played a note. Just one. Ethan stumbled back. The keys were untouched. Then another note followed. And another, a broken melody. The clock struck 9 o'clock p.m. The first knock unlocked every door and window before night fully settled in. Outside, the snowfall intensified, blanketing the world in suffocating white. The forest beyond the house stood unnaturally still. No wind, no animals, no sound. At 11:47 p.m., the power went out. The Christmas lights across town remained on. At 11:55 p.m., the temperature dropped sharply. Ethan's breath fogged the air. At 11:59 p.m., the clock stopped ticking. And then knock. Ethan's heart jumped. Another knock followed. Slow. Careful. Then a third. Exactly 3 knocks from the front door. And then singing. The voice was soft. Female. Beautiful. And impossibly close. Ethan backed away, his pulse roaring in his ears. "Go away," he whispered. The singing continued. Closer now, not from the door, but from inside the house. Behind him, Ethan spun around, The living room was empty. But in the dark glass of the window, he saw a reflection that wasn't his own. A young woman stood behind him, her skin pale as snow, her eyes glowing faint blue, her lips moving in time with the song. She smiled, and the lights went out completely. The lights snapped back on. The reflection in the window was gone. Only his own pale face stared back at him, eyes wide, breath shaking. Silence filled the house again. No singing, no footsteps, no presence. But Ethan knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was not alone anymore. Ethan didn't sleep. Every sound made him flinch. The groan of old wood, the whisper of wind against the windows, the ticking of the clock that had started again at 12:01 a.m. As if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The house felt different now. Awake. At dawn, Ethan finally dared to move. He checked every room, every corner. Nothing. Until he reached the piano. The keys were covered in frost, and carved into the wood above them were words that hadn't been there before. Sing with me. Ethan stumbled back, his chest tight. That was it. He needed answers. Winter Hollow looked alive in the morning. That frightened Ethan more than the emptiness. People walked the streets now, bundled in coats, smiling, carrying wrapped gifts. Children laughed as they ran through the snow. The bakery was open. Bells chimed. It was a perfect Christmas morning. To perfect. When Ethan greeted people, they smiled back, but their eyes avoided his, like they knew something he didn't, like they were waiting. In the town square, Ethan noticed a wooden board near the Christmas tree. Flyers were pinned to it, old, yellowed, some torn. Winter Hollow Christmas Choir. Final performance, December the 4th. Dates changed from year to year. The performers did not. Each flyer listed names. Every single one was crossed out, except one. Clara Whitmore. Ethan felt a cold hand brush his spine. You shouldn't read that. He turned. A woman stood behind him, no older than 30, her face pale and drawn. They don't like it when people remember, she whispered. Who? Ethan asked. The dead, she replied. Her name was Leela Harper. She worked at the local cafe and had lived in Winter Hollow her whole life. She spoke quickly, nervously, as if afraid someone might overhear. Everyone here pretends Christmas is normal, she said. But after sunset, no one sings. Why? Ethan asked. Leela swallowed. Because Clara sings for us. They sat inside the cafe, steam rising from untouched mugs of coffee. Leela finally told him the truth, at least part of it, decades ago. Clara Whitmore had been the heart of Winter Hollow, a singer with a voice so beautiful people said it could warm the coldest night. On Christmas Eve, she led the choir. Every year, until one winter, she didn't come home. She was supposed to sing the final carol, Leela said softly. But something went wrong. What? Ethan pressed. Leela shook her head. No one agrees on the story. That was when the cafe lights flickered and the bell above the door rang. Though no one entered, Ethan left the cafe and headed straight for the bookstore. Mrs. Alder was waiting for him. I wondered how long it would take, she said. Locking the door behind him, she led him to the back, where a single book lay open on a table. Its pages were brittle, its cover cracked with age. The carols of Winter Hollow. The ink inside looked fresh. To fresh. This town survives because of the song, Mrs. Alder said. Clara's spirit keeps something else asleep. Ethan's blood ran cold. What something? Mrs. Alder didn't answer. She turned the page. A hand-drawn image showed a church buried in snow, and beneath it, something dark and twisting. Listening, when the song stops, she whispered. It wakes. That night, Ethan dreamed of the church, snow piled high against its doors. Inside, a girl sang alone, her voice cracking as frost crept across the floor. He woke gasping. Outside, church bells rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Ethan looked at the clock. 11:30 p.m. He grabbed his coat. Somehow, he knew tonight the town would test him. The church stood at the far edge of town, its steeple piercing the sky like a warning. The doors were open. Inside, the air was freezing. Candles lit themselves as Ethan stepped forward. Shadows filled the pew's humanoid shapes, sitting silently, heads bowed. Not people. Memories. At the altar stood Clara. She looked more human now, more broken. Her eyes met Ethan's. I waited. She sang softly. The shadows turned toward him. For you. The door slammed shut. The organ keys began to move on their own, and beneath the floor something shifted. Listening. The church doors slammed shut with a sound so loud it shook the snow from the rafters. Ethan spun around. his breath coming in sharp clouds. He rushed to the doors and pulled, but they didn't move. Not even an inch. Locked. No. Sealed. The candles lining the aisle flickered violently, their flames bending inward, as if something unseen was breathing. Then the singing began again. Not one voice. Many. Low, broken, layered on top of each other, singing the same carol slightly out of sync. Silent night. Holy night. The shadows in the pews slowly lifted their heads. They had no faces, only mouths. And they were singing. Ethan backed away, nearly tripping over the steps leading to the altar. Clara stood motionless, her feet hovering inches above the frozen floor. Frost crept outward from beneath her, crawling like veins through the stone. Her lips moved, but her voice didn't match. It was deeper now. Older. As if something else was singing through her. You left me, she whispered. The shadows rose from the pews. Men, women, children, all translucent, all wearing choir robes. Their faces were hollowed out, eyes missing, mouths stretched wide in endless song. Ethan realized with horror these were the names crossed out on the flyers. The ones who hadn't survived that Christmas. The flow of vibrated. A deep, slow sound echoed upward, not a growl, a breath. Cracks spread across the stone beneath the altar. Glowing faint blue. Mrs. Alder's words returned to Ethan's mind. Clara's spirit keeps something else asleep. What are you holding back? Ethan whispered. Clara turned toward him. Tears of ice slid down her cheeks. I didn't know, she sang. They told me to keep singing. The floor split open from the darkness below. Something moved. Long. Black. Shaped like twisted roots and ribs, wrapping around the foundations of the church. Eyes open in the dark. Dozens of them. Listening, waiting. Suddenly, another sound cut through the horror. A piano. Soft, familiar, silent night. Ethan's heart shattered. He knew that playing. He knew that rhythm. Grandma. He whispered. The organ stopped. The shadows froze from the back of the church. A warm golden light spread forward. A figure stepped out, older, gentle, smiling sadly. Margaret Cole. You always listen, she said. That's why I chose you. Ethan shook his head. You're dead. She nodded. So is Clara. The creature beneath the church recoiled, hissing soundlessly. Margaret led Ethan to the organ. This town made a bargain, she said. Long before you were born, something ancient lived beneath the mountain. It fed on fear, cold, and silence. The first choir sang to keep it asleep. Clara was never meant to sing alone. But the townspeople panicked when the storm came. They locked the church, left her behind. And when she died, Margaret continued. Her song became a prison. Clara screamed. The sound shattered the stained glass windows. I didn't want this, she cried. The creature surged upward, cracking the floor wider. It was waking. Margaret placed Ethan's hands on the keys. The song must be finished, she said. Not by the dead, by the living. I can't, Ethan cried. I don't know the rest. Margaret smiled. You do. I taught you. The shadows began to melt. The creature screamed not in anger, but hunger. Ethan played. Slow at first. Then stronger. Clara's voice joined his. Not cold, not broken. Human. The creature recoiled, retreating into the dark. The frost began to melt, but it wasn't over. Not yet. The final verse remained, and the creature wasn't done listening. The music trembled. Ethan's fingers shook as they moved across the organ keys. Every note echoed through the church, bouncing off cracked stone and broken glass. The creature beneath the floor screamed again. Not loudly. Desperately. It felt the song slipping away. Clara stood beside Ethan now, no longer floating. Her feet touched the floor for the first time in decades. Color slowly returned to her face, but fear filled her eyes. If the song stops, she whispered. It takes someone. Ethan swallowed. Who? Clara looked at him, the one it wants most. As Ethan played, the church began to change. The walls faded, the shadows dissolved, and suddenly he was no longer standing in the church. He was a child again. The living room of his grandmother's house surrounded him. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner. Snow tapped softly against the windows. Margaret sat at the piano, smiling. You're rushing, she said gently. Feel the music. I'm scared, young Ethan replied. So am I, she said. That's why we sing. The memory shattered. Ethan gasped as the church slammed back into existence. The creature surged upward again. Furious now. It had learned something. Margaret's spirit appeared once more, her form flickering. It feeds on unfinished things, she said quickly. Regret, silence, fear. The creature's eyes locked on Ethan. "You left," Clara whispered. "Just like everyone else." The words cut deep. Ethan's hands slipped out. The music faltered. The temperature dropped instantly. Ice raced up the walls. Candles extinguished one by one. The shadows screamed as they were dragged downward toward the opening in the floor. "No!" Ethan shouted. The creature rose higher. Its massive shape finally visible, a twisting mass of darkness and frozen breath. Shaped vaguely like a mouth forever open. It sang. Not with beauty. With hunger. Margaret stepped between Ethan and the creature. "Listen to me," she said softly. "I stayed so you could leave." Ethan shook his head violently. "No, don't. I was part of the choir," she confessed. "I helped keep the song alive after Clara died. Every Christmas, I sang." The creature lunged. Margaret turned back to Ethan, smiling through tears. "Finish it." The creature wrapped around her, pulling her spirit downward. Frost consumed her light. "Grandma!" Ethan screamed. The organ keys slammed down under his hands. "Round yon virgin." The sound blasted through the church like thunder. Clara screamed, not in fear, but rage. "I was 16. She cried. "I just wanted to sing." She stepped forward, standing beside Ethan, placing her hand over his. Her touch was warm now. Together. They played. Together. They sang. The shadows broke free from the floor, rising not as victims but as voices. Joining the melody. The creature shrieked, recoiling, thrashing against the sound. It was losing. But it wasn't gone. Not yet. The music slowed again. Ethan's chest burned. His vision blurred. The creature whispered into his mind. "Stop playing. Rest. Let it be quiet." He thought of leaving. Winter hollowed out of silence, of never coming back. The song began to fade. Clara squeezed his hand. "If you stop now," she whispered, "I die again." Ethan closed his eyes and sang. Not with fear, with love, sleep in heavenly peace. Light burst from the organ. Ethan's hands moved over the organ keys with determination, each note striking like fire against ice. The creature beneath the church roared, shaking the stone foundations. Its form writhed, a black mass of frost and hunger, reaching toward the ceiling, trying to swallow the world. Clara's voice joined his, trembling at first, then strong, clear, pure. "Silent night, holy night." The shadows that had once haunted the pews rose. But this time, they didn't attack. They joined the song. Faces that had been hollowed by death, mouths stretched in endless screams. They sang. Ethan realized something. The choir had been trapped not by death, but by unfinished music. Their voices had been waiting for a living heart to complete the carol. The creature thrashed violently. Ice and darkness spread across the church floor, trying to engulf Clara and Ethan. Spoke not with words, but with thought, pressing into their minds. "Stop, fail, leave it unfinished." Ethan's chest burned. His hands shook. Every fiber of his body begged for silence, for safety, for escape. Clara gripped his hand. "You can do this," she said. "We're finishing it, together." With a deep breath, Ethan pushed forward. Every note he played was a strike against the darkness. Every note they sang together peeled the frost from the walls, softened the shadows, and forced the creature downward. "Now," Clara cried, stepping fully beside Ethan. Her voice soared. The warmth in her tone spread through the church like sunlight piercing winter clouds. The shadows erupted into light, each voice joining the final verse. "Round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace." The creature screamed, a sound that shook the heavens and cracked the stained glass. Then, with one final surge of light, it shattered, vanishing into a cascade of sparkling snowflakes that drifted harmlessly to the floor. Clara's eyes softened. For the first time in decades, her smile was real. Her pale, frozen skin warmed. She looked around at the church. No frost, no shadows, no creature. She whispered, "It's over." When Ethan awoke, sunlight streamed through the windows of the church. Snow outside glittered like diamonds. He stepped outside, and the town was alive. Children laughed as they built snowmen. Bells rang freely in the square. Families decorated trees with joy and warmth. The perfect Christmas everyone had been waiting for. Ethan spotted Leela Harper, who waved and smiled. Even the townspeople looked relaxed, peaceful. No one mentioned the horrors of the night before, and Ethan knew why. The curse had ended. Back at his grandmother's house, Ethan approached the piano. A single card rested on top. It read, "Thank you for finishing the song. Merry Christmas." MC Ethan smiled. A sense of calm filled him, the first he had felt in years. Clara's spirit had finally found peace. and Winter Hollow could celebrate Christmas without fear again. From that year onward, Winter Hollow was different. Every Christmas Eve, the town sang together, honoring the carol that had saved them, and sometimes, if the wind was just right, Ethan could hear a soft, melodic voice joining them, a gentle reminder that music, love, and courage had conquered the darkness. The lights glowed brighter than ever. Snow fell gently, and for the first time in decades, Winter Hollow slept peacefully, knowing that Christmas was safe.